Good evening and welcome to Under the Hood. It is season 2, episode 2. It is Monday, September 18th. The Giants play in just about under an hour, and hopefully it is not a season-defining loss. Again, could be make or break. Nevertheless, we have a lot to get to tonight. I'm Eli Karp, your host, and we have Matt back with us for episode 2, and special guest Will Wiggleman, NHL expert. Anything hockey, also can cover some other sports, but hockey is really his specialty, and we have brought him in because the NHL preseason has begun, and believe it or not, Will, correct me if I'm wrong, but in just about 2 to 3 weeks, regular season is going to be underway.
Yeah, it's almost here, and you're anything like me. You've been waiting for this since the closing seconds of the Stanley Cup Final last year. I've watched a couple preseason games, and I'm excited. I can't wait for it to get started.
Yeah, just a quick note, if you're watching, please submit your questions through the comments box, the chat box, not the comments box, otherwise I will not see them. Time to get to from the NFL. One game I want to start with is the game of the week, which was Denver. I thought it was going to be a very good game, and it turned out to be a real stinker. But not that I'm unhappy about that, because I don't know if many people, if either of you at least, expected the game to go like this. I thought it'd be very close. I thought Denver had a chance to pull it out, but I did not expect it to be a 25-point win and a runaway. But I have to say, one of my favorite feelings is being able to be 35,000 feet up in the air in a plane and watch Zeke Elliott get trapped in the backfield and watch the Cowboys get absolutely throttled. So I did enjoy that. Very, very interested to get your thoughts on this. I thought that Dak, I mean, they've now played two of the better defenses in the league, and they've averaged 18 points a game. Now, that's not terrible, but that's not very good. And even though it is tough competition, it's interesting to think, especially you saw it yesterday, that Dallas offensive line, as revered as it is, didn't do anything yesterday. It really, really was overpowered by that Denver defensive front and the crowd. And as a Dallas fan, a team expected to come in and compete for a Super Bowl, this was, I think, a bit of a wake-up call. Win over the Giants was nice. They really dominated, but they were outclassed yesterday. So, Matt, I want to start with you, just a couple thoughts about this game, and then we can keep going into some other NFL thoughts.
Well, it's obvious that Denver's goal and the Giants' goal and every defense's goal this year against the Cowboys is going to be to make Dak Prescott beat them, because it's obvious that Zeke can run all over anybody except for when they focus on him. And I think that's really what the Broncos did, is they really just took Zeke out of this equation they just really focused on him, and they made Dak Prescott beat him, and obviously he couldn't.
Yeah, Will, any other thoughts on the Dallas-Denver?
Yeah, it really showed how half of Dak Prescott is Ezekiel Elliott. And Dak Prescott doesn't have the success that he has unless Ezekiel Elliott is on his game. So, if any NFL team wants to beat the Cowboys, it was demonstrated last week, as Matt said, that you need to just make Dak Prescott beat you, and you can really pull it out.
Yeah, and I thought that even more surprising than the Denver defense stifling the Cowboy offense was the way that Trevor Siemian and that this Broncos offense was able to move the ball so effectively and put up 30. Obviously, there was a pick six, so they put up 35 points against this Dallas defense, which finally showed its holes. Obviously, the Giants didn't do anything to show any holes in it last week, and it's typically been called, more than the sum of its parts, but the deficiencies were exposed. But Trevor Siemian was really good yesterday, and I've always believed that with enough time, he can actually, be productive. He was under so much pressure last year. His receivers dropped so many first downs last year. So as bad as the Denver offense was last year, it wasn't all on Siemian. Their offensive line was terrible. This year, with a couple upgrades, they're running the ball well. Even though if Garrett Bowles is hurt for an extended period of time, that would really hurt. But the fact that Trevor Siemian moved the ball as he did, he looked like he was really in command of this offense. He didn't look like a first-year starter anymore. He looked extremely confident. And with that defense, even without Wade Phillips, that defense, even without TJ Ward, that defense is unbelievable. The things they've now done to a pretty good offense in the Chargers and a really top class offense in the Cowboys that has to start working things out. But if the offense can get going, Kansas City and Oakland better watch out. And this is definitely the best division in football, the AFC West, especially because the Chargers are the unluckiest team in football. They have now lost 2 consecutive games on a missed or blocked field goal. So, for Denver. Anything else but the AFC West we want to talk about since I just mentioned it? The Chiefs won a pretty competitive game against the Eagles. That was exciting yesterday. Did not see much of the Miami Los Angeles game, but it's kind of how it goes. Jay Cutler gets a win though. That is impressive for Jay Cutler. He starts the Miami era off strong. Jay Ajayi, he was good for fantasy. Also, note on Denver for fantasy owners, all the receivers that I think many people really let drop on the draft boards because they were not confident in the offensive line or Trevor Siemian. This is a week that really propels that confidence back up, whether it is Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, even Virgil Green, who I briefly mentioned in a group chat yesterday, how he is an underrated nothing doer, and yet he comes and catches a touchdown yesterday. It was just clicking on all cylinders. C.J. Anderson was solid yesterday. There is a lot of potential now in that Denver offense, especially because it's no longer Gary Kubiak who is directing it. It's now Mike McCoy and Bill Musgrave. So things to look out for in the Mile High City. What else do we have here? The Patriots rolled. Who watched the Patriots game? Another great outing by Tony Romo yesterday.
I didn't watch the game, but I definitely heard that the Tom Brady just really wowed after a lot of people last week were doubting him and saying he was starting his decline. But I think he threw for almost 450 yards, which was really kind of a statement after last week. After he just didn't do very well.
Yeah, I think him on my fantasy team. I have Tom Brady on one of my fantasy teams, and I was really disappointed with him last week. But after he threw 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, you could tell it looks like the old Tom Brady is back.
Yeah, I wouldn't even qualify it as the old Tom Brady. I think that fake Tom Brady came in for a week and just had a bit of an off week in the opener. But yeah, 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. I think that's actually the first time in his career that he's ever done that. So Brady is not slowing down. Everyone's like, he's 40 now. The legs are going to begin to go. He had a bad game week 1. He certainly rebounded against the defense, which he should torch. Don't forget, this is the Saints defense. Patriots offense against the Saints defense. But once again, Tony Romo, really an insightful color analyst, giving what actual analysis should be. Very excited for CBS that they brought him on because I think he is a real diamond in the rough when it comes to color analysts. He just brings a lot of enthusiasm. He calls the plays before they happen. And it's not even like he spoils it. It's so entertaining. Is he going to actually get it right? Like, from my point of view, he always blew it on the field, at least towards the end of the game, but he is certainly nailing it up in the broadcast booth. So I'm happy for Tony Romo, especially because he's not going to take any more injuries unless he has some chronic laryngitis. Let's see. Cardinals-Colts. I thought this was very interesting. The Colts were up by 10 late in the fourth quarter. The Cardinals, who, relatively high hopes coming into this, they really suffered against the Lions late, and they were down against a Colts team, which was terrible. And really got the nail laid into them by the Los Angeles Rams. And Scott Tolzien was yanked by Chuck Pagano. Jacoby Brissett, who has started 1 game, maybe 2, but I believe 1 game in his NFL career, and that was with the Patriots. He did win. He was starting for the Colts, and they were off to a really good start. And then I think this could be a season-defining moment, or albeit early, a season-defining moment for the Arizona Cardinals because they are down on the road by 10 to a team that they should be beating. And if they lose this, there are many, many questions about where this team is going, especially with David Johnson out with a banged-up receiving corps. But the resolve that the team showed, even against a poor team, to come back and win that game in overtime, that is guts. And I'm not sure how much I actually believe in this Arizona team, but this is an extremely important win for them and really could turn them in the right direction, especially because the Seahawks have looked really, really bad. They beat the Niners by the skin of their teeth yesterday. Down, we'll see how they go. And the final team, San Francisco. Yeah, San Francisco's been kind of surprising in that they've been competitive, but the West is still there right now. No, the Seahawks have not looked invincible. Any other thoughts from the NFL, or I'm going to end this segment with, the Daily Giant rant? No. Will, what did you put together from the Steelers' performance yesterday against a Bradfordless Minnesota?
Well, it's rough losing T.J. Watt. He had a great opener, like amazing. Like I couldn't have expected more from him. Game, 2 sacks and an interception. But he went down to the injury right now. They also didn't have Bud Dupree or Stephon Tuitt last week, so or for week 2. But their offense has yet to get to the level that they're supposed to, especially Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell was expected to have a great season, but he didn't show up to training camp, and I feel like that is one of the causes of the poor start that he's having. He didn't show up to training camp. He doesn't have the chemistry yet with the team, and he's going to need to pick it up. And once he picks it up, that will definitely open up the rest of the offense.
Yeah, I was disappointed in Antonio Brown showing yesterday, at least fantasy-wise. But one thing fantasy owners should pay attention to is Martavis Bryant, and he's a boomer bust candidate. But he came alive yesterday. I believe it was 5 or 7 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown. Very solid outing. Big Ben really had it going with him yesterday against a good defense in the Vikings, and I think Martavis Bryant is starting to come alive. It's good sign if you're a Steeler fan and if you are looking for another play in fantasy. So now let's move on to the brief Giants rant, and they played Detroit today. It is, in my view, a must-win game, their home opener. They should win this game because Odell is on the field. Even if he is not 100%, he is a decoy, and the decoy goes a long way to serve against defensive planning and the formations that are put out by both the offense and the defense on the field, then I think he's going to have an extremely impactful influence on this game. I think the Giants will, being at home, be a little bit calmer, able to settle down, get a little more going early, and I think that this defense, Detroit is a much different team away from home. And although they were able to eat up Arizona towards the end, I think that the Giants will be able to contain Stafford, even though their best corner, Janoris Jenkins, is inactive tonight and B.J. Goodson is inactive. That gives me a little bit of cause for concern with this team, but I think that the offense will, let's see. I do think double digits coming for the offense. That's about as good as I can predict from the offensive side. I really don't know if they're going to exceed 20. They've only done that, once or twice in their last 10 or 11 games. So we'll see where that goes from there. But I think they will manage to eke it out because they need to. They can't go 0-2. They need at least a 1-1 start from this because their schedule does not get much easier from here. So, we'll revisit this next week, at least the Giants, when we come back a week from now, see where they stand, if they're in dire straits or not. So let's move on, Matt. We'll give you a little bit of a segment now to college football. I know you were picking at the AP poll. Clemson is now number 2. Do they deserve to be there?
They definitely made a pretty good case against Louisville dominating, but it's another year of Louisville being overrated. And we saw last year Louisville lost towards the end of the season. I think they lost 3 games after being ranked in the top 4 earlier in the season. And I really just think that's not that amazing of a win for Clemson, but I can't believe that they jumped Oklahoma, who just absolutely throttled Ohio State at Ohio State in the shoe. And Oklahoma only gets 1 first place vote, which is understandable because Alabama is completely deserving, but I just cannot believe Clemson jumped Oklahoma. And then you can see at the bottom of the poll a little bit of SEC bias going on. I really just don't see why LSU is still ranked after losing by 30 to Mississippi State, who no one even thought of before the season of contending. But Mississippi State is really reminding me of Mississippi State a couple years ago when they had Dak Prescott, and they're just an exciting team to watch on offense. I mean, their defense is shaky as always, but their offense is really impressive so far.
Yeah, and the SEC has been very interesting so far. Auburn sits there at 15th, and frankly, I think they've been anything but impressive. They were handled by Clemson. They really didn't beat Mercer if the score held by much, as it was towards the end of the game when I saw it. Other interesting things. Okay, USC, not convincing for the second out of 3 weeks. They were very convincing over Stanford, but this is now the second game. Even though they're 3-0, they barely in overtime. They needed actually 2 field goals by a walk-on in his first ever collegiate game where he's attempted a field goal to win it for them. Oklahoma State, all cruising. I'm interested to see about USC what happens. Sam Darnold's been throwing a lot of picks. Michigan. Matt, I want to get your thought about Michigan. You're invested in this team. They have not impressed for the last couple of weeks.
Well, I think that a close game against Air Force is completely understandable because, I mean, you see these service academy teams running the triple option coming in every year and contending with big teams. Like a couple years ago, Navy played Ohio State down to the whistle, and then obviously Ohio State handled Army, but Air Force, Michigan still, they should have been able to pull away more at the end there. I can't believe that. I think that this is one of the reasons that Florida is incredibly overrated right now is because Michigan handled Florida the same way that they did Cincinnati and Air Force. So it's just kind of like Michigan's not too impressive right now, and I really think that this upcoming game against Purdue at Purdue could be a trap game for the Wolverines.
Yeah, Purdue has managed to actually – everyone thought they would be the dumpster fire of the Big Ten. And, again, they still have the potential to be. But they have, with a very strong showing against Louisville, who they were expected to be blown out by in the first game. And who did they beat?
Missouri.
And they as bad as Missouri is, they are a Power 5 team, an SEC team. They absolutely demolished Missouri. Mm-hmm. And this is a very interesting section, at least when you look at 8, 9, 10 in the AP poll. Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio State. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, but I am really thinking at this point, Ohio State's got to be reeling in their playoff chances. I understand they have, the schedule, the pedigree schedule that if with a few key wins and if they can go undefeated the rest of the way and win the Big Ten, there is a legitimate case for them to get in. But I've seen nothing from them that indicates that they're going to be able to do that. Number 9 is very interesting because Wisconsin, what could have been a somewhat tricky trip to BYU. It's never easy to play there, and BYU is always pesky, although they are in somewhat of a rebuilding phase. Wisconsin finally put a full game together. Utah State by 49, but let's be honest, they were down 10 before the half, and they, if not for reeling off something like 59 straight points, things could have been interesting, but it wasn't a complete performance. Their performance against Florida Atlantic when they only won by 17 wasn't especially convincing. This win against actually a decent team by 34, where it was a start to finish, complete win by the Badgers. This is what gives me confidence that the Badgers can actually, make a run at the Big Ten Championship. They should run the Big Ten Championship and then possibly the college football playoff because they have a very easy schedule. And that game in Madison on November 18th against Michigan is going to be a critical game for both the Badgers and the Wolverines. Who knows if they're undefeated? Both of them are undefeated by then. Wisconsin really at that point should be because of their schedule. Michigan has a few more hurdles to clear. But if they beat Michigan, then they are they're by all means likely into the Big Ten Championship. And then after that, it's whoever they play from the East, whether it is Michigan, Penn State, or Ohio State, presumably. And I would think that an undefeated season, of course, should get them in. And I think that there is the potential for this team with a stout defense and an offense that has clicked. Michigan and Wisconsin are very similar teams in that they rely on the defense and the offense has been shaky. But at this point in time, I'm leaning more towards favoring Wisconsin over Michigan right now, only because this is now 2 straight weeks against 2 opponents that Michigan really should have had a complete game against, and they have not, and the Badgers finally put it together. Plenty of time for things to get going, but I think this will be interesting. What do you think about Wisconsin, Matt?
Well, I really think that you alluded to that matchup in Madison is going to be really tough because last year was obviously a knockdown, drag-out game. With 14-7 was the final, and I really think this year is going to be the exact same thing. I do think that Michigan will pull it out, but just because Michigan's defense is unreal this year. I mean, it's even better than last year, which is saying something because they were the #1 defense in the nation. And it's really just, I really think that Wilton Speight will eventually find his stride. And if he doesn't, then they'll bring in John O'Corn, who's a very good replacement. He was Rookie of the Year in the AAC. I mean, Freshman of the Year in the AAC his freshman year. And I'm really surprised that Harbaugh is not doing anything to concern competition. He's assuring everybody that it's Wilton Speight's position, but I really think he needs to give some thought to John O'Corn.
Yeah, looking at the rest of this poll, some interesting spots here. Do we really see Mississippi State? I understand that they took it to LSU, but I'm not sure how convinced I was on LSU to begin with, and this is a 1 win for Mississippi State. Are they really a 17 seed? A 17 rank here. That's a question to ask. Florida, do they deserve to be a 20? The 20th seed. They beat a Tennessee team, and let me tell you this: Tennessee, for all of the hype, every year they have it, has so underperformed, and they were close to losing their season in week 1 when they barely beat Georgia Tech in overtime, and really they should have lost that game. Butch Jones, it's time for him to go. I'm no SEC football aficionado or no volunteer booster, but from everything that I watch and from everything that I hear about this Tennessee program, should be their East to win for the last couple of years, and they don't do it. Butch Jones was brought in to make this offense work, and it's been terrible. So you know what? At this point, Butch Jones has vastly underperformed, and I would not be surprised to see Butch Jones shown the door if they really can't turn it around, or just at the end of the season if they don't meet expectations. Utah is in the top 25. Oregon, I'm wearing an Oregon Ducks shirt today. Was in Oregon for the weekend. They have finally starting to climb back to prominence after a really disastrous 4-8 season last year. Anything else on college football before we move on to the NHL?
Well, I guess just one more thing. I really think that there's some San Diego State has beaten Pac-12 teams in back-to-back weeks, and I really would not be surprised if San Diego State is one of those non-Power 5 teams that makes a run in a playoff appearance. If they're undefeated at the end of the year, they're going to be in the conversation, especially with their running back that's averaging over 150 yards per game. I mean, they really took it to Stanford this week, and I really think that they could be in the conversation if they go undefeated.
Yeah, and the chain reaction there says, I mean, Stanford killed Rice in their opener, not a surprise. But Stanford had a lot of hype coming into the season as well. Does the USC, win that they absolutely handled over Stanford, does that hold the weight that it once did? So, again, do we give USC a little bit more the benefit of the doubt with that Stanford win, or now that Stanford now has 2 losses already? Leave USC as well. Do we still have as many doubts again about them concerning their Western Michigan performance and now their Texas performance, although it was a rivalry game and those things aren't too uncommon when it comes to college football? Anything else, Matt?
Mm-mm.
All right, that is all. All right, Will, here we go. So the NHL season starting in a couple of weeks. Obviously, you're a big Islanders fan, but you are well-versed in everything hockey. What are you looking for? Pick a couple of things that you are looking for including you can throw plus something about Las Vegas. A couple of things that you're looking for in this upcoming season.
Well, first, Las Vegas destroyed Vancouver last night 9-4. Of course, it's only preseason, and most of Vancouver's big guys were in China for the game in China. I believe that's tomorrow. Coyotes actually already canceled a preseason game because of bad ice. Um, yeah, the Islanders and the Rangers are actually playing right now. Um, but I'm actually looking for the Rangers. The Rangers are going to decline this year. They're on a Henrik Lundqvist is 35, 36. He's getting up there. Kevin Hayes as a number two center, like I don't see it. He's a bottom six forward. He's a serviceable power forward, bottom six, but I don't think he can play the role that the Rangers are going to need him to play for success. So that's one thing. I see the Rangers declining. I don't see Vegas as the worst team in the league this year. I believe that Vancouver will actually be worse than them. They're in a weird trying to rebuild, but they also keep signing veterans for some reason, kind of phase. And the Sedins are still there. They just signed Thomas Vanek for who knows why. Um, and of course, their big big draftee from a few years ago, Jake Virtanen, has yet to make his mark in the NHL. It's looking more and more to be a bust. Um, so that and keeping with the Pacific Division, how far can Edmonton go? How far can Connor McDavid take them? Um, they're going to be a lot of fun to watch, as are the Toronto Maple Leafs. I compare the Toronto Maple Leafs to, if anyone watched the World Cup of Hockey, Team North America. All the young kids, really fun to watch. Lots of skill going on there. And Mike Babcock is one of the best coaches in the league. Lou Lamoriello, one of the best GMs in the league. So that situation there, and look for maybe the Oilers and the Maple Leafs to meet in a few Stanley Cup Finals down the road. Um, and then one more thing, I don't think the Penguins will be able to get the three-peat this year. Um, and the Capitals will also decline. So there could be um, some new big guns in the Metropolitan Division, very competitive Metropolitan Division. Um, but the Capitals lost too many guys, and the Penguins lost some role players in Nick Bonino, especially, and they also lost Marc-Andre Fleury, so there's no safety net for Matt Murray anymore. Yeah, so there are a few teams on the decline this year, which will leave spots for some of the up and coming teams.
Yeah, Metropolitan always seems to be competitive. Who knows? Maybe it could actually be Columbus's year to come out as the top seed of the Metropolitan. Interesting thought. I understand where the Rangers decline talk comes from, but do you not think hedging some of their bets on their young draft picks with Lias Anderson and Philip Cheadle? Fun fact: I actually met Philip Cheadle in the airport in Chicago this summer, so that was fun. Hopefully, he does well. I shook his hand, so that was fun. But do you not think that bringing in Shattenkirk is really going to get them to that next step? I understand the concerns about the depth, about how they have enough depth but not enough stardom. Is Shattenkirk not the answer?
I feel like Shattenkirk is a power play guy, but I don't. He's not the greatest 5-on-5 defenseman. If you look at his numbers 5-on-5, he's not a top pair defenseman. He didn't play top pair defense in St. Louis. He's a power play specialist. That's simply what he is. Um, so I don't think Kevin Shattenkirk is the answer. And also, big thing for the Rangers, you mentioned that they have the depth but not the star power. They still don't have at forward, in my opinion. They don't have the guy they turned to late in games. It was supposed to be Rick Nash when they made that huge trade. He didn't really. Yeah, I see you rolling your eyes over there. He didn't really pan out as that. But the Kevin Shattenkirk is not a good 5-on-5 player. But he will definitely improve their power play. I'll give him that. But 5-on-5, I don't think he'll be a huge impact.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely looking, at least in the East, for the Lightning to get back on track. I think they'll have everything they need to make some noise, at least this season. The Islanders, they're exciting. I don't know what they'll do exactly. You probably have a better idea than I. But I think the East has a lot to be sorted out. So does the West, but Chicago will be there. Minnesota will make the playoffs, have a nice regular season, crumble in the first or the second round. Dallas is an interesting team to keep an eye on. Gotta see what the Kings do. See what the LA Kings decide to do. Ben
I don't
Bishop
know
now.
about the Kings. I don't know about the Kings. They need to fix some salary cap problems over there. You got Dustin Brown on a crazy contract. They need to fix some salary cap stuff over there. And you mentioned the Lightning. I mean, they have all the pieces if Steven Stamkos stays healthy. Their leader, Steven Stamkos is healthy. They can go based on Steven Stamkos' health. They can go from a top contender in the East to maybe not even making the playoffs. And you saw that last year. I mean, even Nikita Kucherov almost into the playoffs, but Andrei Vasilevsky will have a year as him being the starter, and I like him. He'll be good. Dark horse team in the West that I'm looking at is Winnipeg. Their biggest downfall last year was their goaltending. They got Steve Mason this year. So look for what they can do, especially Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, and Toby
Bufflin?
Ehlers. That's a big buff. Yeah, they have a pretty good team out there. I think Central Division gonna have to watch out for them. Maybe they can probably sneak in.
Yeah, one quick thought regarding the salary cap. You talked about the Kings having salary cap issues. The Edmonton Oilers have spent a ton of money between Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Where does that leave them for the other pieces of the team that they will need to address, especially the defense, where they are very cap strapped?
You know that is a great point. They're gonna have to make some tough decisions. You saw how Chicago did it on their when they won their 3 cups in 6 years. They had to make the tough decision, send some guys away, but it would be very critical how they develop young players and be able to use their entry level contracts to the best of their ability, to their highest potential. So that's going to become extremely important for them. And if you want to look at cash strapped teams, you look at Colorado. They are up near the salary cap, and they're horrible. They've been looking to trade Matt Duchene for God knows how long, and they still can't. So you can either do it the right way or the wrong way. You have to make sure you get everything out of your entry level contracts if you want to stay competitive with big money contracts on your books.
All right. Well, thank you guys both for joining me. This has been a great episode 2. Nice segment. We'll be back next Monday for more. For Matt and Will, I'm Eli. Brad Wing should be paid more than anyone on the Giants offense, and have a great night.